the Equity Accelerator. Here we go. I'm really excited about today's conversation. We get together, we talk about anything is fair game that would accelerate our lives, particularly accelerate our businesses. We're kind of business focused here. I am a mortgage loan originator in the Portland, Oregon, and the state of Washington marketplaces. So we talk a lot about mortgage business. We talk a lot about the real estate market, running a real estate business, and all those things. I'm super excited to have Kris Jones join us today. She is a brand strategist and a web developer. She helped me deploy the most recent version of my website, the pdxhomeloan.com website.
Nice.
And
it's really clean. Looks great, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's all Kris. So, it's the best version yet. But the story of how I found Kris, it is a story. So we live lives of stories, right? Is that I got very enthusiastic about a book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I heard Donald Miller speak a couple years ago, and he just blew my mind. And then I went to his workshop, and once I became really fluent in his marketing framework, it's really a formula for using storytelling to connect with your potential customers.
Yeah.
In a marketing way, because he's written a bunch of books and he's written memoirs and he's written screenplays, and he kind of pivoted out of storytelling into really understanding that there's a marketing concept here that's really powerful. And so after I went to the workshop, I went to the StoryBrand.com directory to look for certified StoryBrand marketing consultants to help me pull my stuff together. And Kris was the Portland connection, and she
Nice.
is a certified guide. Kris, do you want to tell us your story of how you came to this stuff? And then what I'd love to do is share a lot of the story branding concepts with our audience. With if you're a real estate agent, if you're struggling with marketing messaging, this is the best thing that I've ever found, and it really works. As soon as we put the website up, I think I got I started getting signups within 48 hours.
Wow.
So it's unbelievably powerful.
Awesome.
Yeah, James, and that's the beauty of it. It works, and it's not complicated, which is so delightful when it comes to marketing, because it can feel pretty overwhelming at times.
The complicated part is it's like a minimalism almost. It's it's removing the distractions, so you have a clear sense of what you do and what your reader, what your client or prospect is supposed to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there are particular components that I think there are right around 7 different components that make up every story. Every story you've ever heard, from thousands of years ago till modern stories today, have about 7 different components. So what it does is it invites your customer into your story. So they participate as a character in your story, and it's a great way to connect with your clients and help them feel like not only that you understand them, but also that you can solve their problem.
Totally.
Kris, how did you find StoryBrand?
Well, I run a boutique design firm here in Portland, Oregon, and I work directly with business owners to help them realign their brand. So there's a thing that I call the brand gap, where a business gets going and then they evolve and grow over time, but their brand stays stagnant. And so what I do is I step in where they're at, and I work with them to realign themselves with their brand, and that includes their logo, their website, and all their other collateral. So they feel really aligned internally and externally. And that impression that they make with their audience is accurate.
Yeah.
So it's about where they are, but also about where they want to be. So
I see that a lot. Like James, if I think about real estate agents in particular, I think a lot of real estate agents don't feel aligned in their marketing. There's what the industry tells them to do, and then there's what they feel internally they should be saying or doing, or what feels right to them. And those things don't often match. Do you see that too, James?
You know, I do. I think that real estate marketing is really tricky. And a lot of realtors just plug into like a giant corporate platform and they get their own little extension website,
right.
like
Little template.
I mean, a good example is the Keller Williams. They have the Your Work agent, and you get your own. They're like, hey, join us. You'll get your own website, and it sounds great. But then, man, if you go to that website, it's pretty bobo, if you ask me. It's like it doesn't. I mean, it looks like it's from like 1999.
Yeah.
The font is. It looks like it's just something you can make on like a Word doc or something. So it doesn't look particularly professional, and it also, there's so much information on it, and you don't really know doesn't give you a feeling. I found my little notepad from when I went to the workshop, and I was reviewing some of my notes from the StoryBrand workshop that I went to last summer. And the first thing I wrote down is, we mistake marketing for branding. And I think that's something that Kris, you do specialize in branding. But branding creates how someone feels about a product. And I think the story, and I think what we can do is we need to focus on marketing. And I think what a lot of real estate, like Remax with the balloon, and that's a branding. You have a feeling, you're like, oh, I know Remax. The repetitive nature of the look and the feel and the colors, it triggers a certain amount of trust. Yeah. But then what?
It's like your reputation, really. Your brand is your reputation.
Yeah. Yeah. In today's world, that's super true, with like Zillow reviews and Yelp reviews and all that stuff. Becomes a really powerful driver of how people make decisions with this type of business. But branding, it kind of comes with the company. But what Kris and I have done, and what the StoryBrand is about marketing, which is the specific words you use and the specific outcome you're trying to create. When I think about my website, I know that people come to my website when they're thinking about getting a mortgage. I do drive a pretty strong amount of business from people who just Google Portland mortgage broker and they find my name. And sometimes they'll just, if they're on their phone, they won't even go to the website. They'll just call, right? And so it drives phone calls. That's one way it works. But sometimes they'll go to Yelp and they'll see all these reviews and they'll say, oh, this guy's got a lot of reviews. Maybe now I'll call him. Or maybe they'll go to my website. And what I'm trying to do is connect with people, right? So every time it triggers a phone call, that's like a success, like it worked. But when they go to my website and they're really doing their research and their due diligence, I want them to connect with me. I want them to fill out the form. I want them to ask their question, right? I want them to download my little guide. So and all these things give me their name and number and their content, and I can follow up with them, and I know they're tangentially interested in what I'm doing. So how can I help, right? So that's a productive conversation to have. And it's not a referral, it's different.
It's different. And the one key thing that you're talking about here too is when one of your customers is looking for a mortgage broker, they're going to multiple websites. So how can we share with them in like 5 or 10 seconds what makes you different?
Yes.
And that you understand the challenges that they're going through. So creating like a sense of connection,
right, and
differentiating yourself, and you have to do it super fast.
Right, and Donald Miller calls that an open story loop. Do you want to talk about that, Kris?
I do. Cool, yeah. Yeah, it's part of our wiring is in all around story. Like we sat around the campfire as, cavemen and cave people. And so the minute you open up what Donald calls a story loop, it's impossible not to engage in that story. And it happens to us all day long. We're not really conscious of it because it's
Right.
so much a part of our wiring. So
But
that's
the best thing to do in marketing is to open up a story loop for your reader, for your consumer, that is only closed by clicking I'm interested, or by that they can close their story loop by engaging with it. That's the name of the game. I have a great example of this. I have this CRM that I use that, when I talk to someone, I put them in, I collect their information, and I, classify them as they're thinking about doing this in 6 months, or they're in the middle of a contract right now. So it kind of just helps me manage a large quantity of conversations at once. But the best thing this thing does, every CRM is a mixed bag. I don't know anyone that loves their CRM totally, but the best thing that this thing does is if I haven't talked to someone in 6 months or I don't know what the protocol is, but it'll just send them an email, and it'll just say, the subject email is following up. That's the subject line. And then the email is one question. It was just like, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while. I just wanted to follow up and see if you still were interested in having a conversation about mortgage financing. And everyone replies to this email. Everyone, it's like an open story. It's something irresistible about it. I don't know, it doesn't seem to be that well written, but it's just simple. It's a quick question. And so it's so powerful. People will say, you know what, I am thinking about it. Thank you for email. Or they're like, I'm still good. We decided not to do it, or we went a different direction, or whatever. But I'm shocked at how powerful that particular question is. And I've got another example of this. A realtor friend of mine says the best email I've ever sent is it's one question, and the subject line is the question, and the body of the email is the same question. And he's like, I get like a 60% response rate. And it's similar. And it's basically, are you still thinking about making a real estate move this year? That's the question.
Wow.
When you send it and that's it, and it's just sitting there, you'll feel tension. You can't just ignore it. You have to just it's so short that you feel like, I can just reply real quick. Yes. It's a yes or no question. Right. And you feel like a jerk if you don't answer.
And it's automated. That's the beauty of it, right? It's effortless. It's on autopilot. So
to me, that's an example of a good story loop. But what are some other notes I have here? One of the things that Donald Miller was saying was that branding and marketing are two different things, and we get them mixed up very frequently.
Absolutely.
And branding, he says, is a luxury that we can only really deploy once the marketing is dialed. If you have great branding but not good marketing, you're not going to have a lot of success. And I think that's the gap that a lot of real estate agents fall into. It's like, I'm at Keller Williams. They do have a great brand, but their specific story for that agent in that moment, that's the marketing that's missing, right?
Exactly.
And I think that if you could create your own personal story, even your own, for instance, the PDX home loan team at Sierra Pacific Mortgage. So Sierra Pacific Mortgage is the brand, and they're a big company, and people have a certain feeling about them. They recognize it or whatever. But I'm telling the PDX home loan story, and to me, that's my priority.
Kris, what do you see for breakdowns? When people come to you as businesses, what are some of the most common things that you end up helping them sort of refine, tweak, fix?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the most important piece on your website, well, there are two things, but the header area. So the header area is really that first above the fold area that is visible on your website. It's at the very top. Usually there's a headline there and a subhead and ideally a call to action. So the header really gives you the opportunity in 5 seconds to share with the visitor what you offer, share with them how it will make their life better, and what do they need to do to work with you. So people really overthink that header area, which is really a shame, because you've got those 5 seconds to communicate those 3 things, and if you don't do it,
Yep.
they leave.
Right.
So yeah, I think, that's the kind of thing where it's kind of fun, actually. You can look through lots of different websites. The simpler, the better. Don't be clever. Don't be vague. Like James, with your website, we wrote, we help you build wealth faster with smarter borrowing decisions. That's the headline. So there's no confusion there. There's no like, hey, envision your optimal future. It's like, okay, what are you, a psychic or a mind reader?
Yeah.
So I love the clarity of that. It also really does help you stand out from your competitors. And then the subhead we came up with was leverage your home equity into financial freedom with the right mortgage strategy for you. So that really communicates what are they going to get from working with you. They're going to get financial freedom. So really, it's all from the perspective of the visitor of your website. What are they going to get from working with you? And then right below that, we have the call to action, which is schedule your strategy call. Also in the upper right hand corner, which is the most valuable part of your website, we have, again, that call to action, schedule your strategy call. And
right, that's our main thing. And in previous versions of my website, I always thought the thing I really want people to do is apply for a mortgage, but I think that is too big of a hurdle to ask someone to clear who doesn't know me already. And so that we have to imagine someone just sort of finding their way here. They're kind of curious about a mortgage. They're curious about where they stand. We want to keep the barrier low and clear. And one of the things that the coolest thing about StoryBrand, the StoryBrand concept, the StoryBrand framework, is if you imagine your brand as a story, there's 2 stories happening, right? There's my story, but there's also my client's story and how they come together. And so I want to create like he calls it a framework, but I almost call it like a backdrop, like a stage for my client to walk onto, right? And so everything is done and written with the idea that my client is on their own journey in their own life, and they're the hero of their own story. Of course, I'm the hero of my own story, but that's not relevant to them, right? What's relevant to them is I need to make a mortgage decision. How am I going to do this? Do I qualify? Am I making the right decision? Am I overpaying? How can, it's scary. There's a lot of confusion. And so who can help me make this decision? So I really framed the copywriting in terms of my client is making a decision. I'm here to help them make a decision, right? I have a special process. I have experience in helping you make a great decision. So I wanted to speak specifically to that.
Yeah.
When people show up, that they say, oh, this is me, this guy can help me. And so the idea, one of the ingredients of a story is every story has a hero and a villain and a guide, right? And so the mistake a lot of people make when they're marketing is they puff themselves up as a hero. Hire me, we're the best, we have the best price, we go fast, we have the best technology. Like,
you see that in real estate all the time, by the way.
All the time, right? But the idea is, it's like, if you could just, it's a very subtle shift. If you could just say, hey, I have a system for helping people accomplish X, Y, and Z, and it's proven and it works, then you're giving your client the opportunity to be the hero, to grab your service as something that helps them, go on their heroic journey, right? So that's how you weave in the story concept. It's not necessarily, I'm not telling the story of PDX Home Loan. I am using PDX Home Loan to help someone else have their own story, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most confusing part of StoryBrand. If you haven't studied it or read the book or gone to a workshop with Donald, is that people think, oh, how do I tell my story? It's all about me and my story. Well, the reality is there are the key person in every story is the hero.
Right.
But ironically, the hero is really the weakest character in that story, because that hero or that character doesn't know if they're going to end in success or if they're going to end in failure.
Right. That uncertainty is the drama of any story. That's the tension, right?
Exactly. That's what we get magnetically pulled into when it comes to a story loop, is not knowing, okay, is it going to end in success or failure? And then you come in and present yourself as the guide with compassion and authority and the idea of, hey, I've been through this before, and I know how to get you to the other side so you experience success the way that I did. And this formula, like, go to a movie tomorrow and you'll understand who the character is, aka the potential hero.
The hero, right.
If they use you, James, as a guide, and they follow the 3-step plan that you give them, and then eventually they find success of, financial freedom and vacation homes, or leveraging their wealth to retire early, or whatever their version of success is.
Exactly. And so that's another key is, you've got the hero, the villain, and the guide. Your client's the hero. You're the guide. Who's the villain? It's really powerful to define the villain. And for me, it's like, who is the villain? I don't know. Is it the big banks? Is it general confusion? Could be a villain. I don't know. It's different for everybody, but
I think for you, it's general confusion.
I agree.
There's so much lingo and language that goes on in mortgages that, Joe Schmo is not familiar with. Like, it gets very, very overwhelming, and there's a lot of confusion about rates, and, I just got to get the lowest rate. Well, that's not really always the case. In fact, often it's not the case at all.
Right. Often, yeah. That's a dangerous part of my story, is that it's hard for me to express rate. People, when they're shopping for a mortgage, they're shopping for a rate, but I'm trying to quickly show them how the rate is super important, and I want to honor that, but I want to help them understand the total cost of borrowing over time. And oftentimes the lowest rate option comes with a lot of fees. It might have the mortgage insurance structured in a way that's overly expensive. You can lose money in lots of other ways besides getting a rate that feels, quote, too high, right?
Right. So we talk about the villain, and the villain for you is confusion, but really the meaty, like, nugget underneath the villain is all the emotion that happens underneath that. So in StoryBrand, there are the 3 layers of emotion. There's the external problems. So that's why I'm coming to you, because I have a problem. I need money. I need a home loan. I want to buy a house.
There's a hero, there's the guide, there's the villain, but there's also the hero encounters a problem that they're not sure if they can surmount or not.
Right. But they think that they have this external problem, which they do. But the reality is people make decisions based on emotion. So what are the emotions underneath that overwhelm and confusion? And that's where things get really good with StoryBrand, because you start to connect emotionally with people, and they start to get a sense around, like, oh, this guy really gets me. He really understands the emotions that are in my brain and heart when I wake up in the middle of the night. And when people get that sense of connection, it's subtle. It's kind of like a good soundtrack to a movie. Like, when it's done well, you don't really notice it. You just feel like you've been heard. And that's where people make decisions from. So they think they're making decisions because of their external problem, but they're really making their decisions based on their emotional problems.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, what can we do? How can we have a realtor who's listening to this or watching this? What do you think we can share with them real quick, if they're thinking about creating like a simple like starter kit for their own version of StoryBrand, like a PDF that they could email to somebody, or a simple landing page that they can walk someone through at an open house who's just maybe thinking about doing something.
I think that the best thing that you can do is to buy the book "Building a Story Brand" by Donald Miller. I mean, he puts it all out there. It's like, right. And it's a quick, fun read. He's a story guy, so he knows how to.
It is a well-written book.
Yeah, keep you in the loop. Yeah, you can. I mean, are you looking for like quick tips or?
Yeah, I think so. Like you were mentioning, there's 7 key items that need to be on every landing or every single web page or something.
Every home page contains 7 different sections. I talked with you guys a little bit about the header section. Mm-hmm. If you just change the header section to align with StoryBrand, you will see immediate results. And there are 7 other sections on the home page that I can walk you through, or if you wanted to come to my website and set up a call, we can talk through that. But some of the key components of a home page are testimonials. I mean, we all know the power of testimonials. And after being in the industry as long as I have, it's never changed. Testimonials just work. When people realize other people have worked with you and gotten good results, then, you just don't underestimate the power of a good testimonial. Mm-hmm. Feature testimonials on your website that are results-based. So not just like, hey, I loved working with James and his team. It's like, no, what was the result of working with James?
Right.
And PDX Home Loan? What was the result you got? So make sure that your testimonials are speaking to the results. I think another key component is making sure you share your plan with people. So what do they need to do to work with you? Mm-hmm. Schedule a call, email you, whatever it is for you. Just make sure that you repeat that multiple times on your website. And
I think that's the key. For me, that is the biggest mistake I see, is that you might have a beautiful website, but it's not clear how to
engage.
How do I buy that? I'm ready to buy it. How do I buy it? Right. Or I'm ready to learn more. How do I learn more? Right. And it's just my least favorite thing on realtor websites, and I know they do it to avoid spam or whatever, is they don't put their email address on their website anywhere. It's just you have to fill out a contact form. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're ready to connect, you don't want to have any barriers between you and a potential client. None. Right. So that's why with you, James, we put your website on the upper right-hand corner of your website. It's right there. I mean, your
email and phone. You got to imagine someone's also looking at it on their phone.
Right.
Their phone number or email address. You can, I mean, we have forms for them to fill out too, but I want them to be able to just tap my email address and open up their email and send me a question, or tap my phone number and we're talking, Yeah. Another thing that I want to drop in here is that when people, specifically for people who are doing online research for real estate or mortgage or whatever, make it easy for them to connect with you, have your email address ready to go, have your phone number ready to go. One of the things that I learned early is that people who call you because they found you online are not going to leave you a voicemail. So I have an answering service that anytime someone calls me between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., they're getting one ring and they're getting a person who has a script. Welcome to pdxhomeloan.com. This is James Adair's office. How can I help you? And they qualify them a little bit. Do you already have a loan in process with the team, or is this for a new inquiry? And then they'll text me or call me and say, hey, I've got someone on the line. It's a new business. And I know it's a priority, but if I can't take it, I haven't lost it because I've got their name and number.
Right.
I follow up with them right away. So that is a hot tip for any real estate agent who's listening to this. if I was a realtor, I would have an answering service ready to go. I'd have my own dedicated phone number for that, and it would be on all of my for sale signs. A lot of people, I mean, I've mentioned this to realtors, and they're very hesitant to do that. I gotta believe they're missing so much.
Absolutely.
Because people will call, they'll get an answer, they'll kind of get engaged, and then that service will text you their name and number, and you can start building a list of people who've called on this property.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's
Really
so
good.
many cool things you can do with that.
Well, Kris, bring us home with, if people want to reach out to you and learn more about the StoryBrand Framework, how you work with clients to sort of create the SB7 framework for them in the side of their marketing, how do people reach out to you? Where can they go?
The best way to find me is on my website, which is Red Door Designs, REDDOOR Designs with an S at the end, reddoordesigns.com. And you'll be able to set up a call with me there. We can go through the StoryBrand Framework together. I can help you with your logo. I can help you with your website and all kinds of other good stuff. But we really weave that StoryBrand Framework into everything we do. So the framework can be really powerful with a website, but it can also be very powerful if you weave it into your branding. So if you have business cards that have your one-liner on the back that help people understand exactly what you do, or another part of that might be on your email signature. So you've got your logo and your name, and then your one-liner below that. So it's just really getting all those components aligned so your message is cohesive and consistent, and then it becomes really powerful. And the best result from that is that you build trust with your potential clients, and that makes working together really easy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Kris, you've been an awesome resource for me, and Kris comes with my highest recommendation. So give her a call, go to her website, check it out. Go to, and your website, puts people through that StoryBrand process, very, very specifically, as does the new pdxhomeloan.com. So if you're interested, check it out, get a feel for what we're talking about here. As a attendee of the 2-day StoryBrand workshop, I have some really cool collateral. I have these like pads for the brand script. So if you're out there, if you're a realtor who works with me sometimes or is interested in sitting together and learning more about how a partnership with PDX Home Loan could help you, one of the things we could do is I could do I could show you how to deploy the StoryBrand framework. We could fill out one of these forms, and you can walk away with a game plan on how to make your marketing better. And then once you've got that game plan, you call Kris and she will help you execute.
It's perfect. I love it. So good. Great episode, James. I love the StoryBrand framework and what Donald Miller's doing. Kris, thanks so much for sharing all that you've learned with them and the work that you do with clients around the StoryBrand framework. And great episode. Until next time, gang. See ya.
Thank you. All right. Thanks.
Kris.